I'll be gone for a while, so check out a fiction channel. It's where I really want to test myself in the art of storytelling, and the second channel for similar topics with shorter length. And join the Discord if you wanted to see a DMC video instead. With the shilling out of the way, let's begin.
This is how it happened. This is how the Batman died.
Listen. People keep asking me about it. They keep asking me about it. I haven't given them an answer yet. But I'll start the game. I'm back. The old SpongeBob. The old motherfucking SpongeBob. I don't think you want to see that. That man's been locked up for long. He's been locked up. Get away. You say we're not. Let's begin.
Tonight, Gotham's relying on one man to save us all.
Intro 1. Hello, ladies and gamers. Arkham Knight is a story about what hope and fear means. Hope being a symbol, becoming something greater, and fear that is inflicted upon criminals and Batman. At the core of it, this is a character study of Batman. What makes a hero? And part of this is, can you protect the loved ones? What happens when your darkest secrets come to life? Arkham Knight tackles these questions head-on, leaving no room for error. With great antagonists, it makes this game stand out from other hero stories. It's hard to believe that not too long ago, people thought that Arkham Knight was the worst or the second worst in the series. But I fully believe that Arkham Knight is easily the best in the series. Today, I'll prove why Arkham Knight's story is one of the best stories for Batman ever told.
You did this to me. I'm sorry.
Intro 2. How will I do this? If you look back on the history of this channel, I made a video called The Ultimate Defense of DMC Devil May Cry. This covered nearly every video on DMC Devil May Cry at the time, while also touching upon elements of gameplay and story. It ended up being 7 hours long. I felt quite satisfied with it. So, I wanted to do the same thing for Arkham Knight. But just like a commenter mentioned, The Ultimate Defense felt more like a compilation video. So, for this defense, for the sake of not ruining my life, again, I'm going to break this defense in a series of parts, for a lot of reasons, but the main one being is that I can take my time due to how big the game is. Part 1, which is this video, is solely about the main story. I will not be covering gameplay. Part 2 will talk about all the gameplay elements of Batman. Yes, I will defend the tank sections, if you're wondering. Part 3 will focus on the side missions, Part 4 will focus on all the DLC, and Part 5 and maybe Part 6 will focus on completely responding to other videos. I hope with this system I can focus on each element of this game. As some of you may know, this isn't my first time talking about this series, or this game for that matter. A long time ago I made a very, very bad video on Arkham Origins, and but this time it'll be different, much different, I promise. My goal for what I'm trying to accomplish is very different. Trust me, it won't be like the last time. I also made a series about BAK side missions. They're all outdated and could be done much better.
As honorable warriors, we will show proper respect to this fallen hero by...
Show a little class, man. Holy shit. Congratulations.
Intro 3. But, of course, there is something that we need to talk about. The big elephant in the room. After years of waiting, Rocksteady finally came back to the Arkham series, but not from Batman's perspective, but rather the Suicide Squad's. And with a new task to kill the Justice League. So, yeah. My opinion isn't exactly complex. I thought the game was, really bad. I may not even cover it, but I think this has to be one of the worst stories told. In terms of characters, consistency, plot, and literally everything is broken. The game, at times, can be somewhat better, but this game is just plain awful. And as of a few days ago, when writing this script, we truly got to find out what happened behind the scenes. So, why talk about Batman Arkham Knight in a time like this? Well, the answer is simple. Just because the creators made something bad in the future, that doesn't mean they didn't make something good in the past. In fact, it's a good time now more than ever to understand why Arkham Knight is so good and why it needs defending. What do you think of AK Magic School Base?
Probably one of the greatest video game masterpieces of all time.
Wow, I can actually, somewhat agree with that. What do you think, Pat?
I am a white man.
I don't know what that has to do with anything, but okay. Sorry guys, I'm using my soundboard that Hexen gave me. Oh wait, what does this button do?
Dante was just a half-demon hybrid that liked killing things and being crazy. He was never much deeper than that, and he didn't really need to be.
Stop!
Even a devil may cry.
Stop!
Trisha's holy boss.
What have I done?
Trisha's holy
God! Anyway, enjoy the video. We start off with a long scene burning Joker. Okay, I know I'm a nerd, and I'm going to explain why this is a good scene and even better as an opening to this game. In this series, we've stopped Joker time and again. We stopped him in Asylum, we stopped him in City, and we even stopped him when we didn't even know who he was at first. Joker has always been key in the Arkham world, so to see his physical body burned, even letting the player burn him yourself, a question is brought up, a question that plagues this game. What happens to Joker with him gone? Do villains see this as a chance, or maybe the heroes have a chance to rise? You see, while the single button action is a cool way to start the game, the story is subconsciously setting up the rest of the game's plot and characters. Yes, I know this doesn't mean that this Joker is fully gone from the game, but we'll get to that part in time. After the burning of the Joker, we get a short speech from Gordon, who is now played by Jonathan Banks, known for his role in Breaking Bad. Now, most celebrity actors, when put in most video game roles, don't do a good job. Megan Fox in MK1.
All Earth Realmers will soon know of Eternus. My realm starves, and it's coming here to feed.
Anyway, Jonathan does a great job in this game, and I hope they give him some kind of live action role for Gordon because he works so well. His voice sounds more like a weared down cop who's seen it all, and it's perfect. Gordon mentions that he had a feeling that a war was coming, but crime fell, as we take a perspective from a cop. Officer Owens to be exact. We'll touch upon Gordon's speech once it finishes. The officer does a small wave to a woman with a smile, implying that the officer has a deep connection with some of these people. Entering the restaurant, the officer orders what he wants, and the man comes up to him saying that someone is smoking in the back booth. So Owen follows this, and it's at this point where we're able to explore. And look, my fellow gamers, this one bit is insane. There are tons of references and foreshadowings in this one bit. One booth was talking about movie studios that Wayne now owns. There are a ton of missing people articles and signs of characters that were going to appear later in the game. Those are just a few I found, and there are tons more, some that I didn't even know. There is dialogue in almost every booth with a different conversations and topics. I didn't even know that the hooded man in the back is named Demon Jason in the files. There is so much detail between two actions. I want to remind everyone that this is all between the players simply walking to the back of the diner. Most players are going to miss all these touches. This is what Rocksteady does in Arkham Knight. Even if there isn't much happening, they will cram so much detail into so little. The whole game is like this, and the best part is that most don't notice it. So throughout this video, I'll try to point out these small details that truly show how packed this game is. Owens goes to the back booth where he sees a monster. The whole diner breaks into chaos, and we're given a choice to fight back. Before we move on, I want to point out another cool detail. In my footage, you see I don't shoot for the whole section. This is for a very specific reason. This whole scene will decide Owen's fate. Later in the game, you'll get to see him in GCPD, traumatized from the events that you've seen. If you shoot the monsters in the diner, his fellow officers will talk about what's going to happen to Owens. If the player shoots and is faced with civilian blood on his hands, he will most likely be sent to prison or at the very least fired from his job. So that's why I chose not to shoot. This gives the officer a much better fate. And this is just all one scene. Scarecrow then announces to Gotham, saying that this is only a warning or else he does this on a much bigger scale. We then see many people fleeing from the city in a matter of a day. Gordon lets us know now that only criminals are out in the streets. We see Penguin and Two-Face after shooting a cop. Gordon saying that only one man can stop this. with that, the game intro is over and you take control of Batman. Okay, this might be a hot take, but I think this is one of the best video game intros I've ever seen. It sets up everything perfectly. It sets up the question around the plot. It sets up every detail that we need to know later in the story. It sets up the main villain. It sets up the small but effective choices. And it sets up the world in a perfect manner that's hard to describe. And let me remind you that we didn't even see Batman. Not once. Sure, maybe people dressing up as him, but we don't see him. And yet, sets up why Batman is a key role in the story. Even the long shot building up to Batman is so raw. It's just so, it's perfect, period. So it's time to talk about Gordon's speech. Gordon starts his speech by telling us what the overall story is about, the death of Batman. Not only is this a good opener, but it also ties into what happens at the end of the game. The narration only continues at the end of the game, and yes, this part is a bit of exposition which gives us some very needed explanation after Arkham City. What does Gotham look like without Joker? It's a key question. We then turn our attention to the past to set up the rest of the events of the game, or its main premises. How Gotham is left empty and afraid of what's going to happen next. But part of that makes the speech so good, and it lacks the filler. Most speeches would take longer and pretend to be deep with weird analogies or try to set up some poorly executed themes. But this speech tells you what you need to know without over-explaining. Another great reason why this speech is so good is because it has long pauses, giving time for the visuals and the music to add to the storytelling. In fact, I'm willing to make a bet on something. Even if you played out the opening on mute, you can completely understand what's going on just by the visuals. So the speech is simply there to simply branch the plot elements that you're seeing together. So not only does this bring together the ending to the beginning, but it also sets up perfectly what the game's theme and story is. Batman makes his way to Gordon on top of GCPD. Gordon briefly asks if Scarecrow will detonate a fear gas on the entire city. Batman hands Gordon a bat phone. Look, it even has mini apps. Do you guys think that you can play Clash of Clans on that? Anyway, Gordon says that Barb is left and is now relieved to hear that. But right after this conversation, Barb reaches out to Batman and shows this isn't the case. Barb sends Batman to the coordinates of the missing policeman's last location. Batman heads over and quickly stops the thugs from beating on the officer. A car tries to run them over, but Batman grapples him and the officer to safety. The officer fears that the city has fallen, but as Batman evens the odds. So this is a pretty big part of the criticism of Arkham Knight, but since we are only covering the story, we will not be talking about it. The next video will cover it in deep depth, but for now it isn't nearly a problem as most think it is. Batman tracks down the car that tried to run him over. A cop was following the car as well, only to get blown away. As we wonder, how powerful are these guys? We take them down and interrogate the driver. The driver tries to inject fear toxin into him, but fails. Batman gets the info he needs and then breaks his arm. I'd like to comment on this new Batman. In the other Arkham games, he has some brutality to him, but in Arkham Knight, Batman tends to take things too far. Sure, it's played off as a joke, but Batman isn't holding back anymore. There are many reasons as to why this is. 1, Scarecrow is a high threat now, meaning Batman could fear what Scarecrow can do to the others. 2, the driver shot an RPG at a cop, killing an officer. And 3, Batman isn't the same after Joker died. All this in one action. It's clear that we aren't dealing with the same Arkham Batman. We're dealing with a darker Batman here. This might seem small, but this is something that will be set up later in the story of this game. The common question if Batman is slowly losing it, as we go on, that question becomes more and more relevant. Just something to think about. The driver says that something is going down in Chinatown, so Batman heads there. We see the militia has poison ivy. Why is the question on our minds? Batman takes out all the surrounding members. One is left standing. Scarecrow teases Batman and gasses his own man with Ivy inside. This does nothing to Ivy, but the effect on the man is clear. Ivy smashes the man's head against the glass and then walks out of the chamber. Batman demands information from Ivy, but she declines. Batman then threatens to
Burn every plant in Gotham.
God motherfucking damn!
This is yet another example of Batman on a warpath. Batman is eyeing Scarecrow like it's no tomorrow. I think this is one reason why Batman is a beast in this game. Batman is fed up and he will do anything to get the job done. After Batman threatens Ivy, Ivy tells us what happened. Apparently, there was a meeting. At this meeting, all Batman's main villains were there. Scarecrow told them how he had a plan to not only kill Batman, but to take over Gotham as well. It's a bit of a shame we never see this meeting. The only thing we have is concept art, and the villains mention it. I wish we could have seen that scene. The chemistry sounds great. Ivy then tries to kill Batman, and as we all know, a hydrogen bomb to the face couldn't stop him, so of course a couple of plants is a cakewalk. By the by, got out of the plants and made it to the ground in 18 seconds, I counted. The militia tried to corner with a few men and some tanks, tried being a key word there. Now, I want to quickly touch upon something that will come up as this series goes on. One of these so-called criticisms is that the tanks should be manned. If that were to happen, Batman would have easily been stopped. I have two major counter-arguments to this claim. One, Batman still has options. He could simply climb into the tank, not the best point, so this is up for debate. However, if you play later on in the game, you realize that the Batmobile can not only hack tanks, but also has EMP. And on top of that, near the end of the game, Oracle is seen hacking even when she's not near them. So even if this scenario happens, Batman can find his way around this. And two, do you know how many tanks we fight in this game? It must be in the hundreds. Plus, you have the militia on the watchtowers and the cars all over the city. Plus, the extra militia that we see in the main story. So, the militia is already spread thin, so programming tanks is much easier than just wasting manpower on said tanks. Third, this one's a bit of a reach, but I'll make sense of it if I can find the dialogue for it. Guys, I found it!
The Cobras were supposed to crush him. Nearly crushed me back at base. Bat tank's better. Knight wasn't prepared. Yeah, he thought it'd just be a souped-up sports car. Someone's intel's a little outdated.
The Arkham Knight's intel is out of date. According to the dialogue for the militia, they didn't even get briefed on the Batmobile turning into a tank. And we actually see the briefing later on in the game, and there's no mention of the Batmobile. So everything I said about the militia wouldn't be better off with man tanks. After destroying some tanks, Batman puts Ivy in the back of the Batmobile. Suddenly, a group of tanks get dropped off at the movie studios, not just there but across Gotham. Batman takes out the drones and heads to GCPD with Ivy. Batman drops off Ivy, and it's here we get some time for world building. We see the militia whose arm was broken by Batman, we see the cops as they are about to prepare for like the worst night of their lives, and Jim on the phone with most likely some politician or someone who's in charge. Cannot state this enough. This is great world building, and it makes the game so much better than the previous Arkham games. I know it isn't entirely new to the Arkham series, but the sheer amount of lines in this world is insane. I will continue to point them out. Speaking of which, I'd like to call to your attention 3 details that don't really come up to the story but are worth mentioning. The first one is that you can see the driver that you took down at the beginning of the game. In fact, he will commonly speak to you throughout the game. But this isn't the detail I wanted to mention. If you go up to him and press the attack button, well...
Got plans for you, Batman. Oh!
I cannot think of any other moment so out of pocket that makes me this happy. Then, as soon as you make it back to the Batmobile, you see the officers surrounding it, fascinated by the car. We also get a quick conversation from Lucius Fox establishing that he's still in Gotham and saying not to run the car off the road, foreshadowing for something that happens later in the car in the story. And the last one to mention is Scarecrow's first announcement on the billboards. These billboards, believe it or not, give us some insight into Scarecrow's worldview. In fact, a lot of announcements tell us a lot about his character and motive. I won't mention them all, but I plan to at least share most of them with you, because this is a great way to flesh out a villain. And this one, in particular, is his thesis statement for most of his other announcements. We want the thugs to cause destruction, shame the people in GCPD, and want to let Batman know that his days of protection are... well, is numbered. Probably the hardest quote is when he says,
I have already won. Emptied your city with a vial of toxin and a few threatening words. That's how little the safety you provided was worth. And when the dawn comes, when Gotham lies in ruin and I turn my gaze to the world beyond, the legend of the Batman will be worth nothing at all.
The devs didn't have to put that in, but I'm glad they did. I said 3, but I mentioned 4. What was that? Yeah, that's what I thought. Batman heads to the clock tower to meet up with Oracle. Once there, they discuss how to track the fear toxin from the sample they picked up, and they figure they could trace what makes up the toxin. Before Batman heads off, Oracle mentions how Gordon blames himself for what happened to her. This will be later expanded upon at a different time. This will shape what choices Gordon makes and build background for Oracle. Skip, mostly gameplay stuff. Batman has a brief conversation with Robin about whether he should join or not. Batman strongly declines, saying that what he's working on is far more important, foreshadowing something. Batman heads to the nearest antenna to track the fear toxin, but only finds Militia Guardian. This is where the new suit is introduced, but the game forgot that I can go back to the menu and choose whatever suit I want, so yeah. So he beats them up, and then he uses the Batarang to track the fear toxin, and all signs point to Ace Chemicals. Ace Chemicals Arc. Batman arrives along with the GCPD waiting for him. Out of nowhere, a mysterious man shoots out the road in a helicopter. The man tries to shoot him, but is quickly stopped by Scarecrow telling him that his time will come. Batman grapples up to see an army from Ace Chemicals. Oracle quickly looks up info about this mysterious group. She mentions that a Black Ops team from Venezuela found the same symbol. They don't know who the leader is, but there is one thing that they do know: his name.
The Arkham Knight.
The Arkham Knight.
Batman shifts his focus to finding Ace Chemicals workers. After taking out the guards, he heads into the terminal and then up to the highest point in Ace to find the workers one person at a time. Over searching for them, we overhear a conversation between the Arkham Knight and Scarecrow. We find out that Scarecrow doesn't even know the Arkham Knight's motives. I wanted to point out something for a very key reason. A lot of people believe that the Arkham Knight is just as bad as Scarecrow. But I want to remind you that this teamwork isn't out of friendship, but rather out of desperation from both sides. They're not buddy-buddy, they just need each other to get the job done. Batman goes after the closest employee after only to find them dead. Batman opens up the entrance for the Batmobile and then heads to another one of the employees. He takes out the militia easily to get to the next employee. On his way, encountering the Arkham Knight. We get to see the Arkham Knight face to face with Batman, and right off the bat we see that the Arkham Knight knows his weaknesses. Mentioning how the armor that Batman wears has flaws. Keep in mind, he just got this suit like an hour ago. There is one thing to point out that I think that goes over most players' heads.
We know your move before you do. We know how you think!
Do you know what I'm thinking right now?
Of course, you're thinking, who the hell is this guy?
No. I'm just trying to decide which one of you I'm going to take out first.
While this may seem like a cute comeback, I actually think it's very true. Every time Batman talks about the Arkham Knight, it's to try and find out his identity. We see this every time till he reaches his reveal. Hell, even before this scene, once Batman sees the army, the first thing Batman asks is for his name. I think the Arkham Knight's identity is supposed to give Batman fear. Fear is one of the biggest backbones to this game's themes. And here, it's the fear of the unknown. It's also known as xenophobia. Not the one about those dirty fucking immigrants. I hope you know I'm joking. Many people point out that Batman should know the Arkham Knight's identity, and I think the whole reason why Batman doesn't know is to add to this fear. Whatever is behind that mask is something to be scared of, something that he doesn't know. So Batman staying in the dark about him only adds to this fear, but not just that fear, but others as well. The fear of death, which Scarecrow echoes many times. There are other reasons for this, but I'll hold on until we get to that scene. The living employee says that Scarecrow brought an army and has been using Ace for hours. Something like this is the biggest way to spread the toxin. Batman quickly takes the employee to safety. Once Batman takes out a few men and tanks, we see that most of the employees are dead. At this point in time, Oracle begs him to get Robin to help. But yet again, Batman denies it. So this whole idea is worth talking about. The Ace Chemicals arc is like the average day for Batman. But there is clearly something bubbling below the surface. Oracle, Robin, and Gordon are all classic Batman allies, so having them show up multiple times gives the idea that it's all going to plan. Keep in mind, we don't get to see these three for the rest of the story in the average way that the viewer may think. Then, below the water, you can tell something's wrong. This Arkham Knight that we know nothing about Scarecrow building this massive toxin that'll take over the city, and even the militia have completely taken over Gotham. This is all building to a story we don't see coming. We fight and save, leading to Batman trying to find his way to Scarecrow. Batman finds a way because he always does. He heads deeper. It's at this point where we get to the important things about the militia's dialogue. The first one is that the militia's info about Batman's Batmobile isn't accurate. One person thinks it's a tank while the other thinks it's a car. The other one is from the leader of sorts. He basically outlines why the militia are doing this. As the game will later show, these men are ex-military, are part of an army that is paid for by clients. When we learn that this is all over, they're getting extremely good pay enough to retire. Imagine killing like hundreds of people and worse just for money. Where do I send? Batman finds Scarecrow, and just when you think Batman has him, he not only escapes but also kidnaps Barbs, catching Batman off guard. With the toxin about to explode, Batman does what a good hero always does. He tries to neutralize the gas, even though Batman could very well die. Batman even says his last goodbyes, then...
Miss me?
He then gets a flashback as a playable Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon and the player walk through the movie studio seeing all of these people actively behaving like Joker. Batman later explains that this is like Kirov's disease. I'm probably not saying that right. They got this from Joker's blood. At the very end, we see that Batman is turning into the Joker as well. Hence why we see Joker as soon as there's fear toxin in Batman's system. Okay, let's get another controversial issue out of the way. Is the Joker in this story a problem? Most people would say without no context, no, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. However, the reason why people were sick of Joker at this point is that he's been the antagonist for all the other Arkham games. And as I mentioned in the last section, so for starters, Joker's a huge character. Using his likeness for most of the Arkham games makes sense, not just as a Batman villain, but as a character. I mean, he got his own movie as well. It's not much of a shock that Joker is in a Batman game. The other problem with this criticism against the game is that this isn't the Joker. You must be thinking, wait, that's him. It's gotta be. He's got the green hair and everything. Well, yes, he looks and acts like Joker, but it isn't really him. As I plan to show with the dialogue later in the game, this is from Batman's perspective. This is him demeaning and fighting himself. So yes, this might appear to be Joker, but in reality he stands in for much more than just a Batman villain. There is a purpose and a reason why he's in this game. Joker isn't an external conflict, but rather an internal one. And I get some people might be sick of the Joker, but honestly, it's used in such a creative way, it's hard to call him stale. The Joker gives us an insight in his fears and guilt. Honestly, without Joker, Batman would feel half-baked. Each villain in the main story feeds on each other. Scarecrow giving Batman fear toxin feeds into Joker, giving Joker an advantage, and that feeds into the Arkham Knight that preys on the insecurity and the unknown, and that feeds back into Scarecrow because Batman slipped up. All of these villains play a key part of Batman's inner and outer conflict. Without one of these, the conflict isn't nearly as interesting. So, as you can tell, Joker's here for a reason. Whether you like it or not is up to you, but the facts are is that Joker is very important for this conflict in this story. So Batman quickly escapes in incredible fashion. Ace Chemicals arc over. At this point, Alfred shares his worries about the current situation. Even though Batman thought Joker was going to be gone, he appears on Batman's screen showing that Joker isn't going away anytime soon. On his way back, we hear the exchange from Scarecrow, talking about how there is something different about Batman this time. Scarecrow says that this is fear coming. What was once below the surface is now bubbling up into something that Batman fears. I think Scarecrow's right. Batman is about to tell Jim something that he fears. But Joker even points this out in a comedic manner. Batman tells him that his daughter has been taken, but doesn't give him the details. However, Batman tells Gordon where she was taken, so they both head to the clock tower. Between this time, Batman takes out the militia and learns how much the Arkham Knight has control over Gotham. Batman enters the tower when something unexpected is shown. Either due to the infection, or the fear toxin, or both, Bruce witnesses something terrible. We get to see how Barbara was crippled. I think this one scene is shown for many reasons. First, I think that there are a lot of people that haven't seen it. Sure, most know of it, but have never really read it before, or seen it that graphically. And in the comic, it was way worse. But the same idea still comes across. Second, is to show the player that Batman has failed before. It's a common trend in this game to point out. That's the main reason why our antagonist exists. Arkham Knight is for the external, Joker's for the internal, and Scarecrow is for both. Third, this is Batman's fear coming into play. Batman doesn't have a happy outlook. The scene is supposed to reinforce that. In fact, later in the game, every time that Barbara is mentioned by Joker, it's as if she's already dead. It's a very pessimistic view on the world. Not pessimistic as in, like, you know, Schopenhauer. Yeah. Hey, look, I'm sorry. I know that only 2 people got that joke. Hey, Editing Splitter, why don't you go get some vids? The worst part about the whole scene is that Batman was never there, but his mind makes it worse for him. To build on top of that, this is the words written on the wall. This is what happens when you drag your friend into this crazy little game of ours. This could mean many things, but for now, I just want to point out that this quote is something that's imprinted in the back of his head for a reason. Some people say that Batman doesn't act rationally for a few choices in this game. Batman could have seen any quote like, "This is what happens when you mess with me," or "Look what you done." Anything like that would make sense, but it's the quote specifically, something that gets echoed later in the game but reflects how Batman looks on the world. So that certain choice at the movie studios is clearly outlined here. But this leads quite well into the next scene. Batman tells Gordon the truth, leading Gordon to lash out. This means that Gordon won't appear until the end of the game, which is a bold way to take the story. Barb and Jim are gone for most of the game, leaving only Robin, Nightwing, Fox, and Alfred. But Nightwing only is in the story through side missions, Fox drops off at a certain point and is put in a side mission, and Robin gets to play the role of a mad scientist. When I first played the game, I didn't like this. I thought it was a bad use of so many good characters, but over time I realized this story is about a single man, what he fears, what he fails, and what he can do in the future to protect. If there were tons of Bat Family characters, I fear the story would become overcrowded and would take away from the overall story. I'll touch more upon this later. Batman quickly tries to find where Barbara was taken, so Batman hacks the nearby security systems because the clock tower's cams were taken offline by the militia trying to cover their tracks, but at this point, you can see Zsasz on the camera feed. Yay! Batman finds the car and tracks it. On his way, he encounters a bomb. This connects to a single side mission, so I'll be skipping over it. The tracks lead to Miagami. Alfred tries to drop the bridge to get over, but is stopped, so Batman has to head on foot. Batman heads to the main point where he takes out the main militia, only for this to happen.
Is he okay? Smoke! He's using smoke!
I hit the X button expecting a fear takedown, and the game was like, say no more, I gotcha fam. Anyways, once hacking into the system, Batman runs into one of my favorite characters in the Arkham series, the Riddler. The Riddler appears telling Batman to head over to the orphanage, showing that Catwoman is being held hostage. This is yet another thing connected to a side mission, so I won't be talking about it in this video. However, there is one detail I do want to mention, and that's Joker's take on Catwoman and Oracle. Listen to this.
Well, Batman, old boy, this is quite the dilemma, isn't it? Do you save the incompetent friend who got herself kidnapped, or the incompetent friend who got herself kidnapped? Personally, I go see Eddie's latest contrived death gauntlet. I'm sure he went to a lot of trouble.
I thought this line was worth bringing up. There are a lot of times in this game when you need to save people. Nightwing, Robin, Gordon, Oracle, Lucius. There's like a whole group of side missions dedicating to just saving people. Let me add to that equation as well. Batman doesn't see himself as needing help, even though through multiple times throughout the story he needs help in the same way. Let me also add that the Joker is seeing things from Batman's perspective. If you equal that all together, these lines show that Batman doesn't see himself in needing help. To Batman, all of his allies need protecting, and Batman sees himself as the only protector. This is yet again what I continue to echo throughout the story analysis. Batman sees himself as the only one to take on Scarecrow. Batman sees himself as the only one to take on the Arkham Knight. So when Batman separates himself from his allies later in the story, don't say that it's out of nowhere twist or that this is somehow out of character from Batman when all the evidence supports otherwise. Could be reading into this a bit too much, but I think that was the message the story wanted to get across. After this, Alfred can lower the bridge for Batman. It's over the speakers we hear Scarecrow mention that Batman has lost control he once had over the city, and Scarecrow takes pride in it. Batman picks up where he last left off. Batman tracks the tires to a crash scene, the same car that Batman has been tracking. After some investigation, it turns out that Oracle sprayed the driver in the face with pepper spray, causing the car to go off the road and sent the driver flying. Oracle quickly got out and tried to get away. However, the Arkham Knight stopped her with a warning shot. Of course, Oracle had a backup plan. While getting away, she threw something under the crate to give Batman a clue about where to find her. Batman then sends it to Lucius to assist. So Batman meets up with Lucius at Wayne Tower. It's there Batman gets the location of the Arkham Knight. Before going to the location, Joker mentions the lack of interest in Batman's identity, but if he knew he was Bruce Wayne, Joker would care a lot more. I think this, to a degree, is mostly true. Again, this is through Batman's eyes and what he thinks he would say. Also, if you go onto the shelf and press A, you'll see what Lucius has been working on. This is the disruptor that you'll see later on in the game. I really love this detail. Not many devs do this, but they wanted to add more elements to the story, and it worked. Batman heads to the location, which is under the city. While going through, Robin calls and asking about Barbara, but Batman tells him that she's fine. Throughout this whole section, Joker taunts Batman for this. This is yet again where I need to mention how important Joker is in this story. Listen to some of this.
Oh, Bats! How very me of you! Though I can see why you didn't tell him after old Jimbo's hysterical overreaction. Still, if you cared about Barbara the way that little sidekick of yours does, maybe she wouldn't have got kidnapped in the first place. They're star-crossed, Batsy. Like me and you. Shame they're being torn apart thanks to your crusade. So let's recap. Barbara's kidnapped, and let's face it, probably dead. You're lying to Loverboy Wonder about it, and dear old Jim's marched off on his lonesome to save the day. Not your best day at the office, Bats. Something on your mind? Plus, if he gets himself killed out there, you won't have to tell him about Barbara. It's win-win.
As dumb as this is going to sound, Joker jokes and insults fixes a big problem. Remember Batman's short conversation with Robin? Batman says that Oracle is fine, when we all know he's hiding the truth. This is by no means the right thing to do. In fact, I'd say this move is downright disgusting. After hearing that, the player may dislike Batman at this point because of how dick of a move this is. So, to fix that, Joker basically tells us that Batman knows this as well, but is conflicted about it. Without Joker telling us, Batman's thoughts would be hard to put this in the story. Sure, Batman could clash with Alfred or a monologue to himself, but with Joker saying this in the worst possible way, it helps to fix a problem that could have damaged the story. Batman makes his way into the control room. He finds that the Arkham Knight is aware of Batman, so this Arkham Knight catches him off guard. The Arkham Knight shoots Batman in the exact spot where Batman's armor is the weakest. The mouth and the eye. Oh, wait, I mean the side of the stomach. Though in my defense, I'm sure that everyone knows to attack the face since it's open. Batman recovers and takes down the men in tanks. Batman follows the Knight's voice, but it turns out to be a fake. This might be a bit of a stretch, but the first line the driver says gives him away. He says,
"Damn it, he's here! Open the doors! Open the doors!"
First of all the Knight rarely says, damn it. It's just too upfront for him. And most of all, he doesn't act super surprised. The Arkham Knight is rarely surprised. Most of the time throughout the story, he can tell what Batman does next. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I think it's a detail worth talking about. Batman interrogates the driver to get details. The Arkham Knight brags about this feat, but Batman tries his best to find out where he is by politely asking the driver. Yeah, we'll go with that. Batman finds out that he's gone to see Penguin. In fact, that broadcast that the Arkham Knight brags at, you can even see Penguin's thugs, jackets, and logo in the background. Batman learns about North Refrigeration and how it's a shell company for Penguin's weapons. After Batman gets an upgrade, Alfred mentions that Nightwing has been looking into North Refrigeration as well, and he wants to meet up. Once meeting up, they learn about Penguin's guns. I'll be skipping over most of this since this connects to a side mission, but we get the info that the Arkham Knight has gone to see Simon Stagg. So, we start the Simon Stagg arc. Simon Stagg arc. Batman makes his way to Founders Island. This is the most heavily defended in the city. Simon Stagg is the CEO of the massive medical research and development. On Batman's way there, he takes out Militia, picks up the remote hacking device from Wayne Plaza, and heads inside the airship. After you use the newly acquired gadget, you hear this brief back and forth with Alfred. Listen to this.
Barbara's the priority. When she's safe, I'll deal with them.
But, sir,
You have the chance to end this now. Capture Scarecrow and you can save the whole city. It's what Miss Gordon would want.
I'm not losing anyone else, Alfred.
At this point in the story, Batman is a bit worried. If the Arkham Knight knows about Barbara, then what else does he know? This leaves Alfred and Robin wide open, not to mention Gordon, which is on his own and most likely will get himself hurt. So when he gets the chance to take down Scarecrow or save someone, he's going to save the person he's close to. Even Alfred mentions that if Batman caught Scarecrow, this whole thing would be over. I think this shows two main things about Batman. Batman really does care for his loved ones and people in general. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's messed up. And second of all, that's not even Arkham Batman. I said Arkham. Okay, I kind of walked into that one. Sure, we see a dude who sticks to the shadows and strikes fear in the criminals' hearts, but he's more than that. Batman has a lot of compassion for others. He doesn't show it often. The last thing is that Batman's judgment being clouded. Let's say he takes down Scarecrow at the end of this arc. Batman could have stopped a whole lot. Why is his priority to find Barbara? It's because Batman lives with guilt. If he lost Barbara forever, that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Like a certain character, the loss of someone scares him so much that he'd rather focus on saving people rather than tracking down and defeating Scarecrow. And keep in mind, Batman takes down villains on a daily basis, but losing someone is something he can't live with. Now, throughout this arc, we see that Simon Stagg likes to put himself in a positive light. Even the militia went so far as killing the scientists working at the airship, but something feels off. Batman comes across Stagg after he's been interrogated by the militia. The militia keep asking for the files, but Stagg seems persistent not to hand them over. So, Batman intervenes. And just when Batman thinks that it's over, Joker takes control, causing Batman to lose track of Stagg. Once again, Batman is back to square one. I just want to mention two things about this setback. One, I love how Joker works in this story. Joker is actively breaking and handicapping Batman in a way we haven't seen before. Well, there is one time in Batman's history. In the Batman TV show that ran in the 2000s, there is one episode called The Laughing Bat. In this episode, the Joker goes around as Batman. In a fight, Joker injects him with Joker Venom, turning Batman into the Joker slowly. For 20-ish minutes, it gets the job done, but in Batman Arkham Knight, it's greatly expanded upon. Instead of just laughing, this version turns his whole mind like him. Just a fun comparison. Also, go watch the show, it's underrated as hell. The second thing I want to point out is that some people have issues with how Stagg was taken, but let this be a reminder that this is from Batman's perspective, not anyone else. Because we don't know what Batman is doing in the real world, he could be punching the air, he could be standing there, or Junkler is in control. It could be one of these or all of these. I don't think that it's much of a flaw with the game, it's just how the story is told. We get a brief look at what it's like, but maybe, well, we don't know for certain. While it would be nice to have it explained through the story, it doesn't matter all that much. Batman tries to get to the other airship, but is stopped by turrets. Well, I could talk about Scarecrow's speech, but Batman just loves interrupting him.
Poor little Barbara Gordon. Close your eyes.
I should stand clear of the containers before tilting the airship.
Look, Batman. I know I'll get crushed, but please, let me listen.
I should stand clear of the containers before tilting.
So Batman tries to get Stagg's fingerprints to take care of it and heads back, taking out the turrets in the process. We later hear Scarecrow talk about how the militia needs to prepare for the cloudburst since Stagg didn't do it for him. It's at this point we find out the truth. Stagg has been working with Scarecrow for a long time, now working on something called the cloudburst. This is a form of fear toxin that has far more serious effects. Furthermore, Stagg also worked on human subjects and only did this for a sense of profit. This whole situation reminds me how powerful Batman villains truly are in this world. The cloudburst goes through suits and gas masks. That's horrifying. Not only like that, but Stagg says that you can single-handedly change wars with this kind of power. But Scarecrow doesn't want that. He wants it not for profit or for power, but nearly needs it to fit his ideal world of fear. This is one of the many reasons why Batman's villains are so interesting. They don't want power or money, they want something greater.
Look at it all. Lovely, lovely money. And it's all mine.
Well, most of them. Batman walks in to see Stagg surrounded by the militia. Batman takes him out and confronts him. Stagg is locked in a cage at this point. Batman interrogates him only to find out that Scarecrow came to Stagg, and that's where their partnership started. Before Batman can get anything out of him, the fear toxin is pumped into the cell. So this is something that I want to talk about. Scarecrow came to Stagg about the fear toxin. I honestly thought it would be the other way around. So something or someone tipped Scarecrow off about Stagg's true nature. At the start of this arc, that doesn't seem to be the case. So it hit me. Stagg must have done something like this before. If Scarecrow came to him, it must be because Stagg was doing human testing along with other questionable business practices already. So this makes me imagine that he's done far worse. A scary thought. The funny thing is that I wrote that before listening to the audio tapes. The audio tapes mentioned that Stagg had a partner. They started this company together trying to save lives, but over time Stagg was drawn to the weapons and money. And his partner was going to blow the lid on it. But I assume Stagg killed him before he could release that. Stagg's story is one of greed and power, and how it can easily corrupt oneself. Now we get one of the most beloved moments in this game. In this scene, Batman tries to take out the Scarecrow, but is tricked, causing Scarecrow to get the jump on him, getting more fear gas into his system. Joker briefly takes control, showing his brutality. Then, Scarecrow escapes. Dude, there is so much to talk about. As we see through this arc, Joker is definitely taking over. Joker wants control more than ever. Up to this arc, Joker seems to be more like the comic relief. The Joker making the ha-has, right? But here, Joker thrust his sense of control on. Thirst. Oh my god. Doing anything to get it. And here we see that he's more than just a joke. I think that's something that the arc does. It's to show how much of a danger Joker can be. We see that come to a breaking point when Joker takes over. Joker knocking the brutal attacks one after the other. Even the militia on the ground begging to make it stop. Which shows how much Batman is holding back. Then we see Joker has him and then he stops. This is the perfect moment for Joker. Joker knows that Scarecrow won't kill Batman, so leaving him alive with Batman holding the gun is a powerful moment. Even the line about Bruce's parents makes this a nightmare for Batman. Batman fears a lot of things, and my dear viewer, you may say, "No, Batman is badass and he ain't afraid of nothing." To that I say, sure, but when it comes down to the emotional side of Batman, Bruce is closed off and fears losing others. And it's one of Batman's main reasons why leading the choices to the Nightfall Protocol. And that gun in his hands shakes so much that he looks up to Joker. Now you might say, why is that important? Because Batman never once even looks or talks to Joker except at the very end. After all the events of the game, Batman doesn't pay attention to him. Batman knows he wants attention, so he isn't going to give them to him. For nearly the whole game. But here, Batman knows that he is close to breaking. Another major thing to mention is this line.
What can you see? A city engulfed in fear. Betrayed by those you trust the most. Your darkest secrets revealed.
Funny enough, everything Scarecrow mentions tells the rest of the story. A city engulfed by fear basically happens, betrayed by the ones you love most. Gordon turned on him, or that twist. Your dark secrets revealed could be that certain twist, or that unmasking at the end. For most of these, I think I'm close. I honestly don't think that that's just a throwaway line. I do believe it has purpose. With all that being said, the Stagg arc comes to a close with a bang. We pick up where we left off. Batman wakes up and sees the public broadcast from Scarecrow. It shows where Barbara is, at the safe house in Chinatown. Batman quickly rushes over. Barbara is found in the same locked cell that Poison Ivy was once in. Now we are in Scarecrow's home turf. Scarecrow pushes in the fear toxin and lets her imagination take hold. She shoots the glass multiple times and then proceeds to shoot herself. Batman questions himself with all this new guilt, but Batman snaps back with an idea of talking with Poison Ivy because she's immune to the fear toxin. Lots to mention, but I won't cover it all just yet. First, this is a whole new interaction that helps Batman find Scarecrow. In this very room, Ivy was shown that she was immune to it, letting Batman to get the upper hand. So this room is far more than just a reuse of a previous section. It has purpose. Okay, let's talk about Scarecrow's motives. Earlier on in the video where I mentioned that the broadcasts matter? Yeah, so I'm going to expand upon that a little bit more. With these extra lines of dialogue, it shows a mini story. So let's look at it closely. The intro strongly talks about the theme of failure and the idea that Batman is not a symbol but rather a human. It also mentions the doubt in Batman's head. The action itself is the coming of life of this, the fear of losing someone, the fear of not being the protector that Batman should be, and then the explanation of the action afterwards. Then the explanation of this.
Batman, what happened at the safe house was not some cruel game. It was necessary. Tonight is about more than Gotham. It's about what you became in that room. The hero who failed. That's what I want the world to see.
It's at this point where we see the main goal of Scarecrow, is to show that Batman is no hero and that he can't save anyone. I think this ties back to something in Crane's life where he wasn't able to be saved. Or maybe it's the fascination with fear that keeps him going in becoming Scarecrow. It's something that we can't exactly pinpoint, but it's highly interesting. I think that's the goal of a good villain. To know not everything behind their act, but rather understanding why they're fighting the hero in the first place. That's just one of the reasons why Scarecrow is such a good villain in this game. One that easily surpasses the Joker. Sure, the Joker was a funny villain and was quite unpredictable, but Joker was always there to just make a scheme or to have fun. Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight want to do something far more than this. Okay, Barbara's death, we'll talk about the gun and how Scarecrow did it, but for now, I'll just talk about how this death means to something, or to someone. This death adds another toll to Batman. This is his failure, one that he can't forgive himself with. Barbara and Batgirl in general, they have a very strong bond. No, not that strong. Okay, ending Splinter. The point is that losing her gives Joker the time to take over. Joker knows that this is all gonna play out. Remember, he's been teasing it this whole game since Barbara was kidnapped. Now, Joker sees it as his time to step in and try and take over Batman. But Batman is stronger than we think. Dude, also, the death just goes hard. Joker's being in between the two just to mock her death hits so well in such an effective way. It's graphic, it's cruel, but it shows that Batman can prevail. Batman heads back to DCPD to let Cash hear the awful news. Here, we get to see a great scene that doesn't overstate its welcome. This gives us insight into Cash's character. While Cash doesn't get many lines, you can tell he's part of the family. Cool detail. Ivy doesn't look like she's working with Batman, but Batman tells her that every plant in Gotham will die if she does nothing. So, she agrees. The first place they go to is the Botanical Gardens, where she can find a way to cancel out the fear toxin. Batman gives her the same device Gordon was once given. So, Batman searches for another big tree with strong power that's been blocked out by man-made roads and buildings. Batman heads to the Wayne Tower to detect the plant and freeze the plant with little resistance. Batman then heads over to the movie studios to look for the next plant he needs to revive. Doing so, we get to see Robin looking for a cure. We see all the Jokers yet again. Henry is still seen as the key to finding the cure. Batman tries taking down the Clownburst with Batwing, but just can't do it because trying to find that with 2 radar towers blocking it makes it difficult. So, before Batman leaves, Robin asks about Barbara, only for Batman to not tell the truth. Okay, a few things to talk about. I think the biggest one is, did Batman make the right choice? I know most of us would say telling the truth must be better, but let's think about it for a second. If Robin knew, he would flip out. In fact, I have footage of Robin doing just that later in the game.
Tim, there's something you need to know. Something's happened.
No, not her. Don't say it.
She's dead. I'm sorry.
Let me out.
I can't. They're targeting everyone close to me. I won't let them get you as well.
Bruce, please. I have to do this.
No.
You son of a bitch! How dare you! You don't get to decide! Get away from me! Go!
Robin loses it. If Robin knew at this point in the story, it would be Joe over for Robin. It would be the same thing that happened to Gordon. Robin, while being a good crime fighter, isn't nearly good at dealing with guilt or anger running through his system. As you can see through most of the story, Batman's allies tend to be the target. So putting Robin into the equation only makes things worse. It's an uneasy position to be in, but what Batman did isn't necessarily right, so while Batman made a decision that's correct for his character, that doesn't mean he's right. We'll come back to this once Robin and the movie studios all come together. Another thing to mention is that I didn't quite notice before is that Joker's input on Joker in the movie studios is met with disdain, which is hard foreshadowing. He heads to the drone, but the Arkham Knight's men and drones are after him. This of course doesn't stop Batman. However, the Knight knows his location now and goes after Batman. This is the only other time you've confronted the Knight since Ace Chemicals. Once clearing out the room, Batman asks Alfred to widen his search to anyone he's sent to Arkham Asylum. At this point, Batman has no clue who's behind the mask. Batman heads to the clock tower to see an emergency broadcast from the movie studios. Henry says he's in trouble and only gets cut off by Harley Quinn. So Batman heads to the movie studios. And so, the movie studios arc begins. Batman makes his way over to see multiple men waiting. So, Batman tries to get in, but is stopped by the main computer. Batman then synthesizes Harley Quinn's voice, causing Harley to send in more men. During that point, Joker mentions something important.
What's confusing me is how the hell she found your top-secret bat base, Batface. She couldn't find her own reflection in a mirror when I was alive. It's like something was holding her back.
Now, to add to this, keep these questions in mind for now. Batman makes his way down as Joker reminds him of what happened in Arkham City. Joker frames it as Batman killing him, and mentions that he will do it again tonight. And I think this is another instance of subtext. Like me and your mom, the key is to hide what's really going on. I've mentioned time and again that Joker is mostly Batman. What's going on here is that Batman is a cynical guy, meaning he sees the worst in every outcome. That's why he plans for the Justice League if they ever went rogue. That's why he stays away from others. This is the story's way of telling us that Batman is scared that in the end he will break, that there will be no going back, and then he might lose everything. This fear drives certain decisions, one of which is at the end of this arc. Batman gets in, and Robin, we see him just, casually beating on the men, and find the Jokers. Through the back computer, they find them in different wings in the movie studios. The first one you go after is Miss Bell. I have to admit, her dynamic is pretty interesting. She's mostly rooting for Batman, making Thug's comments funny. Once we all have the Jokers in order, I'll talk about what Miss Bell has in common with the OG Joker. Both Robin and Batman take her down, and a fun detail that you didn't know is that there's a difference if you do and don't counter Bell. If you do counter her, everything plays out like normal, and nothing of note really changes. If you don't counter Robin, you will get scratches that will be on Robin for the rest of the game, which is an insane detail. But I never got the scratches on me because just like a drug dealer to go to rehab to sell more drugs, I'm simply built different. After this, Robin makes light banter with Batman, and if you know Batman, you know how that goes.
So, looks like you've made a friend. You gonna replace me? I could use a break, and Christina here seems like prime Robin material. She looks up to you, she wants to spend all her time with you. I doubt she'd mind the awkward silences.
But there is a purpose to the scene besides comedy. After that, Joker briefly mentions Jason, and the player is left with a choice. Go after King or go after Charisma. In this playthrough, I went to King first. King is a combat-oriented boss fight. That one's taken down, move to Charisma. Charisma gives Batman a whole song, and again we head back to the cell when Harley gets in our way. You have a choice to listen to Harley. I did it as quickly as possible because I thought Harley was just kind of annoying. I like to mention that this was before I played Suicide Squad, so...
Robin was here. I do not think he won.
That's got Robin. Talk about cutting out the middleman.
I redact my comment. They take down everyone to head back only to see that the Jokers are dead, killed by none other than Henry. After killing, he says that he wants to, quote-unquote, purify the gene pool, which is exactly what Joker said a long time ago to Batman when talking about the other Jokers.
Massacre the lot of them and purify the Joker gene pool.
But once Henry realizes that Batman is slowly turning into the Joker, Henry shoots himself. Okay, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about all the Jokers in this arc. All the Jokers reflect a different part of Joker. Belle reflects the love of danger and the challenge and the love of Batman. Even her dialogue is rooting for Batman. King is about the combat and fighting aspect of Joker, showing the thrill of fighting a worthy opponent. And Charisma's reflects his more artsy and theater-esque nature fighting Batman. And lastly, Henry. Henry is the dangerous, cold-hearted, and planning part of Joker. Now, I can see some people saying that this art isn't really necessary. I strongly disagree for 3 reasons. 1, to show that Joker's infection is worse than you think, 2, Batman's connection with Robin, and 3, Jason. We'll touch upon the last 2 in a second. First, let's discuss the fact that Joker's infection is very much an issue. This whole arc is a reminder of what Batman is really up against. All the Jokers that we see were once normal people, but because of this infection, it turned them into monsters. Joker is, throughout most appearances throughout this game, is the comic relief, but this whole arc is to show that he's much more dangerous than he can ever imagine, and it's a chilling sight to see that Batman could be one of them. And some of you may say, but we already know. Okay, my son, listen to me. What do you understand about conflict, okay? Because while Scarecrow and Arkham Knight are the antagonists, so is Joker. Now go to bed before I break your arm! And a quick 2 details for you. In one shot, you can see the damage of the bat attack from the beginning of the arc, and it shows how far Henry was able to go just to make it look real. The second thing is about amoebas. Now, I'm going to spare you the 20 minutes of looking this up, so I'll summarize it. They are a type of cell, but the most interesting and most notable part is that they can, get this, shape-shift into whatever it needs to be, such as if they need to eat, they'll grow a mouth. Most of them are small, but they can grow. But here's the kicker. If an amoeba reaches the nose or brain, it can kill you. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I'd say this line is here for a reason. I think this reflects the Joker's disease pretty well, or this could be a coincidence, up to you. I'll get to the last 2 things after this brief recap. After Henry shoots himself, Robin orders Batman to get in the cell, now knowing Batman is infected with the monster energy. Batman tries to escape, but it's pointless. Let's circle back to Harley and Henry. The audio tapes tell us more information relating to the two. Turns out Henry turned crazy very quickly. From the audio tapes, it seems like Henry was the true master planner. Harley in the Arkham games as well.
Never was too bright.
Stupid. So her going out on her own is quite an interesting twist in 2015. But that doesn't mean Harley isn't dangerous. Far from it. While she's not bright, she has spirit and motivation. Alright, I had to add a quick quote here from the Wayne Manor server relating to the video. I didn't know where to put it, so I'm putting it here, I guess. This is by Clown Prince. I would just say that the Arkham Asylum established that the Titan formula causes a change of thinking patterns, as evident by the fact that the Titan-enhanced henchmen go into an unstable raise and lose their rationality. Joker is still able to speak because he's already insane. And when Batman says the blood jested for too long, it actually jested while it was in the blood bags, not in the patient's bloodstream. One thing to mention, I have no idea how Henry and Harley even got into contact. Henry is, number one, kind of being watched, and even before that, it's still hard to believe that he could just walk up to Harley and just say, hey, you know what, let's do a thing together. It's a bit weird, I've never figured that out, but small criticism. Last thing to mention is that I actually met the actor for Henry. It was a long time ago, sadly I have no pictures, but this isn't the first time he's been in the same media as Mark Hamill, because Garrick was in Star Wars as Red 3, or Briggs as his codename, I believe. Anyway, this clip shows what happens if you get outside, and Batman says this.
I can't leave this place. I won't be able to stop myself, and Joker will win.
Interestingly, even Batman agrees with Robin. For a long time now, I thought that Batman did this to avoid fighting Tim, but this line of dialogue disagrees. Anyway, Batman gets into his cell and removes his cowl, and Robin takes on the militia all by himself. But Joker mentions that he isn't done with his story about Jason Todd. Now, if you've been paying attention, I haven't talked about Jason yet, and that's for 2 reasons. One, this is how the Arkham series talks about Jason, mentioning him only at the end. Some say that this is a lack of thinking ahead, but I saw this as the perfect time to tell this story. And 2, I want to address this all at once. The first scene is the first 6 months after Jason has been captured. Jason thinks that Batman could save him, but slowly the Joker shows that he's been replaced and that Joker wants him instead. Judging by the environment, Jason's face, and Joker's been doing this for a while. The next one even shows that Joker has even branded him with a J on his face. That catches up to where we are now. Joker at this point has completely brainwashed Jason into hating Batman, and before Robin could tell Joker who Batman is, he gets shot. All of this is recorded and sent to Batman. After this, Batman is flashback to a few minutes ago, but Batman makes a very different choice, this time throwing Robin into the cell, locks him inside, and cuts off his communications. And to make Robin's day worth it, I told Robin about Barbara's death. Okay, before we end this arc, there is so much to talk about. Jason, Robin, and the key choice that Batman made. Let's start off with Robin. Batman and Robin's relationship isn't touched upon that much in detail in the Arkham games. The only real example of this is the DLC in Arkham City, but here I think the connection is quite clear. Batman has respect for him, but still worries about him. Batman critiques him only for the hope that he improves. Having said that, this is still Batman after all. And the Bat likes long silences. Robin looks up to Batman and they share a same amount of respect. And this is one of the main reasons why this arc is here. The game needs you to make you understand why these two are close. Every scene with both of them shows this. The back and forth and even the gameplay shows this. You thought that was for show? Oh, I think you're forgetting that this is Arkham Knight. It works in stealth and in combat and to even take down Harley. The whole scene with Robin and Harley is because Robin trusts Batman to show up. While this isn't a big arc, it knows what it's doing and it does it well. But Batman sometimes worries too much and fearing what others do to him, all because of Jason. Jason is another main reason why this arc is so important. Jason's story in the Arkham Knight is horrifying. The original origin was pretty bad, but this is much worse. In the original story, Jason was trying to chase down the Joker, something about his mother. The point is that Jason got caught off guard and Joker killed him. His death was painful, but not drawn out. The Arkham series has him tortured for months and brainwashed only for him to supposedly die. Jason's story is something that Batman will never forget. Jason fought hard, but died harder, taking all that rage and hate and pointing it at Batman, a man once seen as a father figure to him. Batman is in utter pain because of this. Now keep in mind, it's unclear if Batman knows if the first two scenes are real. There doesn't seem to be a camera like in the last one, but then again, Joker's branding on Jason is something we see later, so it's kind of true. So the origin is very loose. That goes for Jason's death as well. While we can piece it together, what happened, we'll never really see the full picture, and the game's story plays on that. Okay, so Tim and Jason are key to this arc. Big whoop. I want you to defend this scene. What scene? Oh, okay, yeah, that scene. There are apparently people who have problems with this part of the scene, and I see it as utterly proofless. Jason's story is the hammer on the head, but to me, it's not the only overall reason why the story makes him make this choice. This is for an arc. This is the same issue I find criticisms against DMC Devil May Cry's Dante. Dante's an asshole. Yeah, because that's part of the arc and the overall story point. The same can be said for this choice. Batman's whole arc is that he doesn't want to let others close to him die. Just hours ago, Barbara just died in Batman's mind, and of course he's going to try and protect Tim. Jason's story reminds Batman of what can happen when his loved ones are brought into this. To top this all off, as I've laid out all the reasons before, Joker's influence is infecting him. So, even if you were to find this scene somewhat out of character for him, Joker's influencing Batman more and more, leading to this choice. If anyone is saying this is out of character, then I'm sorry that they're very, very wrong. To wrap this whole section off, one key detail that hits me through a building is that you can tell Robin that his future wife is dead. Jesus Christ. I have no words for this scene. The impact is clear and the damage is done. Batman did it to protect him, but at what cost? Arc over. After Batman gets an upgrade into his car, whatever, Batman heads over to Poison Ivy, where they take place in a brief battle. Then, almost out of nowhere, the cloudburst goes off. The streets are flooded with a new fear toxin. We can finally see it. The city of fear. Oh my god, I love this twist so much. This was perfectly executed. This has to be one of my favorite arcs in the game. Here you fully understand there's no turning back. Batman heads to Stagg to see how to counteract this. After mimicking Stagg's voice, guys, this is literally just AI voices. Next, we'll see the White House in New York, and seasons changing hurts the earth. Okay, look, I feel bad for people who don't understand those references.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, that's when they start, but we don't know the extent of the invasion at that point.
I mean, if it's attacking the fucking White House where the president is, I think that's kind of important.
I didn't know that. What the fuck? What are you talking about?
They attack the White House, don't they?
No. When did they attack the White House?
I've never heard of this.
It's the White House in New York.
It's so sad, even a devil may cry. Batman takes out the militia inside and looks for Stagg. It seems that Stagg escaped his cage. Now, some people may think this is an error, saying that he was dosed with fear toxin and in a cage. I disagree. First, let's talk about the fear toxin. The fear toxin that we see at the very beginning of the story is a very different fear toxin than what Stagg got hit with. The fear toxin at first appearance is really deadly, causing all kinds of trauma long term. The cloudburst is also different from previous versions. We know this because after the cloudburst is lifted, the criminals seem fine. Then there is also the liquid version of the toxin that we see in Scarecrow's hand. So my point is that there are multiple types of toxins. Now we can gather that the one that Stagg got hit with is just the weaker version. Also, something to keep in mind is that Stagg slept through it. The fear toxin works best when you're awake. Lastly, this cage was designed by Stagg. It's not a stretch that he knows his way out of this. Batman finds Stagg taking a Nimbus cell to keep the fear toxin from affecting the Batmobile, and Batman keeps it and throws Stagg in another cage. So Batman heads to the Batmobile, planning on putting a new power source. Alfred warns him that it might be dangerous, but knows he must do it. Batman is an inspiring figure for most people. The act of heroism is hard to do, but Batman makes it look easy. This choice could very well kill Batman, but he does it in a heartbeat. This part of his character excels him, and it's one of the many reasons why Batman stood tall for so long. I think this is a perfect part of his character explored in this game. Simply because he isn't perfect either. Batman just threw Stagg in a cage a few minutes ago, and in the last arc he locked Robin away, afraid that he might get killed because something that hurts him. Jason. Batman's biggest failure. Yeah, Batman's a hero, you might say, but that's what I'm trying to tell you and show you, is that there is always more to a hero than just being good. As Arkham Knight perfectly shows, there's more to Batman than simply being a hero. It's said that most people believe that a good guy is boring and should be more complex than that. But complexity isn't about being morally gray. It's the backstory, the motives, the conflict, the flaws, and everything in between. And Ending Splitter, can you stop using Kill the Justice League footage gameplay? I know it's easy fruit to pick on, but, you know, this goes outside of video games. Seeing our heroes being shot in the... Okay, damn, I walked into that one. Anyway, the point is that heroes can be just as complex as an anti-hero or a villain. It's all up to the writer. Joker shows that he's taking big steps. Batman is losing himself slowly. Batman then heads down into the underground, and here we not only see Joker trying to beat Batman while he's down, but we also hear more of Scarecrow explaining why he hates Batman. Yet again, I must bring out the fact that Scarecrow's dialogue outside the cutscenes is super important, and the scene in particular is shown.
What do you seek in those tunnels, Batman? Hope? You will find none. I once searched for terror in chemistry. I thought perfectly arranged atoms could unlock the demons in a man's mind. You proved me wrong. How can the world know fear, true dread, when it has you? A stalwart knight, ever ready to slay monsters. Fear isn't pure biology, Batman. It's more than instinct. True fear is the absence of hope. And hope is the spread wings of a bat, shining on the clouds. You promised that Gotham would be safe, protected. But what does the world see now? My toxin choking its streets, blotting out the moonlight, poisoning the saplings you thought could stop me. And now, Dark Knight, I turn to you. But don't be afraid. It's not your life that needs ending. It's your myth. The hope that you stand for. The hope that dies tonight.
The first one is actually quite interesting, saying that the chemistry is where he thought true terror was, but Batman showed him otherwise. Thinking about Scarecrow as a character started off as a man of science. Fear used to be simply a formula, but when Batman used fear, it wasn't scientific, it was a symbol. So in this way, Scarecrow looks up to Batman, which strikes fear, but the reason for inflicting the fear is completely different. This is why Scarecrow works so well as a villain. The connection is clear and effective. The next line goes even further than that. Scarecrow mentions that fear is a lack of hope, and Batman also stands for hope. This is yet again where the connection is made. To Scarecrow, fear is meaning, but to Batman, fear is a tool to be used for hope. Two sides of a coin here. This is followed up with why the city must fall as well. He also points out the reason why he doesn't kill Batman. You see, he believes that killing Batman won't do anything, and to Scarecrow, killing him isn't important. It's the misuse of fear and the hope that he sparks in others that's the real problem to Scarecrow. Alfred updates Batman to tell him that he's had no luck finding the Arkham Knight's identity. I know people get mad at this, but I think it's just fine. The Arkham Knight could really be anyone. The only strong suspect in my mind would be Prometheus, but it wouldn't make any sense why he would rebrand. We'll come back to this later. Batman finds the plant and takes out the militia, but the Arkham Knight is big mad. So he does what any gamer would do, challenges him to a 1v1 and shouts racial slurs. So they fight. Through this whole fight, Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight start to fight as well. Now, it's a bit unknown how the Arkham Knight and Scarecrow met. Either way, they both hate Batman for what he stands for. It's far more than just revenge for these two. However, they disagree on how they want to take care of him. Scarecrow wants to show the world that he's a failure, while AK just wants him dead. This has been shown since the Ace Chemical arc. This conflict is bound to happen, and knowing who the AK is makes sense. So to me, this has never seemed out of character. Batman defeats AK's tank and then disappears. Batman heads over to see Ivy where she struggles and eventually dies saving the city. This death is perfect. Throughout the story, she seems selfish. The first time we see her, she still tries to kill Batman. Typical Tuesday. In fact, most of us understand that she's the bad guy. And when the game was released, there wasn't many stories painting her as a good guy. So this was a last act of a noble one. But there is also the fact that she was doing this just to save the plant life in Gotham. Since she never really cared for Gotham, this can be seen from that perspective as well. There is a question in philosophy: if someone saves the other for a selfish reason, does that make them just? Or better yet, does that make their act just? I can drone on about this, but I think the question is worth thinking about. It's left in the air, and I think the question adds to her character. Her death means something. This question and the character makes the death perfect.
There's my girl.
God damn it, Ending Splitter. I can't even finish a sentence without that stupid game. City of Fear arc over. After Ivy dies, Alfred tells Batman that GCPD has picked up an encrypted broadcast. Batman heads over and finds out it's Gordon. And, from the sound of it, he's doing something stupid that might end his life. Batman finds a way to trace him and heads over. Batman knew that he needed to save Gordon. One of his best friends. Oh, shit, it's Man-Bat. Look, guys. I need the wing tech upgrade. Batman finds Gordon and a hive of militia. Gordon says that you're going to need more guys than this. This line really shows something about Gordon. While Gordon may be mad at him, he still trusts him. Even when he's captured, he knows that Batman will save him and wipe them out. This kind of loyalty is hard to find. Something that will be tested at the end of this arc. We'll come back to how Batman's allies are more key than you think. A lot of this arc uses heavy gameplay sections, so I'll be jumping around a bit. Scarecrow wonders how far Batman will go to save his friends, something we'll see later on. He also speaks about life as suffering and pain. It seems like Scarecrow is a bit of a nihilist. Nihilism is the idea that life has no meaning, not to get that confused with pessimism, which is looking at life with a glass half empty type mindset, and not to get that mixed up with existentialism, which is the idea that questioning your meaning in life and the place in the universe. I have no idea where I am going with this. All that is to say, Scarecrow does the things he does because he finds life to have limited meaning. Now, he wants others to live that life of misery as well, but instead of thinking that to himself, he pushes it on to others. Scarecrow is so caught up with the idea of fear and it brings life meaning that he forgets the other parts of us that make us human. I won't talk too much about Scarecrow since I've done so much in the past already. Something to think about. Now, it's this interesting part of the game that we don't really see in many Batman media. The militia talk about all these strategies to take down Batman. It's so on point that the leader wears a suicide vest and will explode if rendered unconscious. Now, the leader mentions that this is new, so you're probably asking, why now? At first, I had the same question too, but thinking about it, giving most of the militia a vest would be really bad for one. This wouldn't stop Batman entirely. He still has options like tying them up or just freezing them, or using the freeze thingy. What's that called? Oh, Freeze Blast. I always thought it was something like Ice Grenade, but the name is way better. Oh, okay. Learned something new, I guess. Anyways, 2, if Batman messed up or something were to happen, that's a militiaman dead, and a loyal one at that. And sub 2, if Batman just takes them out normally, they'd be alive. Unconscious and hurt, but still alive. Batman makes his way down into the tunnels where we encounter the Arkham Knight, and it seems that he's a big Dark Knight fan. Personally, my favorite one in the trilogy is Gotham Knight. Batman gets away, and just before AK runs him over, he calls him Bruce. Batman makes his way to Gordon and takes down the militia surrounding him. But right before Batman can do this, we see the Arkham Knight stop him, revealing himself as Jason. Jason later states that Batman abandoned him. Batman tried to reach out to Jason, but he thinks he's lying. So this breaks out into a boss fight. Each time you reach the next phase, Batman still tries to reach him. At the very end, Batman tries to reach out again, but Jason finally lets it happen, giving up on the anger. Jason leaves with only a mask of the Arkham Knight behind. Okay, this one part story-wise is one of the biggest criticisms of Batman Arkham Knight, so I'm going to go over 3 things that make this twist great. And I will also be going over 3 criticisms I'd like to debunk. 1, it makes sense and it's not out of nowhere. Time and again, we are shown why Jason hates Batman. He was not only tortured, but brainwashed. In Jason's eyes, Batman left him and replaced him. Joker pumped him up with so much hate that Jason had to point at someone, and that someone ended up being Batman. And this was not done in a few months, but according to Jason, over a year. Dear God, I can only imagine how painful that process was. 2, this adds to Batman in a meaningful way. We are shown time and again that Batman has a lot of flaws. Sure, he is a hero, but sometimes he becomes obsessed with doing everything alone, just because someone close to him will be hurt. This all ties back to Jason. Jason is the reason for this character change. Literally, before trapping Robin, the final scene of Jason is played out, clearly outlining that Jason is Batman's greatest weakness. And that's not even adding what he thinks about Barbara's death. 3, he's great as an antagonist. Every time Batman thinks that he's ahead, Jason does something that Batman doesn't see coming. It's sort of like Death Note.
So, you're straight?
Yes.
You're straight?
Yes.
You're straight?
Yes.
You're Cuban?
Yes. Wait, fuck.
Gotcha.
Okay, maybe not Death Note, but you get what I mean. The Arkham Knight is one step ahead, except when it comes to his anger. So that hate that drives him can also damage him. So, what are the criticisms? 1. Everyone saw this coming. That doesn't mean that it's a bad twist. A twist is something to build on the story. It's not made for the sole purpose of catching the viewer off guard. If it was, there would be no rewatchability to any twist. It would be nothing if it was just meant for that purpose. 2, this isn't accurate to the okay, look. Jason in Gotham Knights is more accurate, yet that doesn't mean he's a better character. There is a reason why Jason is called the Arkham Knight and not Red Hood at first. There is a difference of Jasons that needs to be looked at differently. And different doesn't mean bad. If Jason is a bad character in this game, then use something outside the comics to make that point. 3, it doesn't make any sense. Now when you look at the other Jason, this Jason was brainwashed and tortured for over a year. Yeah, of course it wouldn't make sense if they're not paying attention to this story. There's a lot more to touch upon when dealing with Jason, but there is a reason my profile pic is the reveal scene. Even the lighting and the camera shots make this a big moment, but I plan to return to it in the future. Gordon and Batman make their way up to Scarecrow. They end up in a standoff, but it's revealed that Barbara is alive. And then nearly gets killed. Gordon shoots Batman for a deal to get his daughter back. Batman saves Barbara, revealing that Gordon aimed for the chest, showing their friendship hasn't been broken. Gordon's relationship with Batman is mostly done at the start of the game. It's one of the main reasons why Gordon narrates the game's intro and outro. Gordon is seen as the true cop. When the world of cops seems gray at the beginning, later turns into a good man himself. Something we don't see often. I think that's why the betrayal hit so hard. It's Batman's closest ally, and to see him go must have hurt. So even after that, Gordon still trusts him, and the slow returning of hope starts to shine. And that's something this game does well. That fear and darkness that consumes most of the story only to bring it back makes it the definitive hero story. And that's why I think this story stands out from the rest. Arc over. Batman takes Barbara to GCPD, where we see the militia are trying to take out the clock tower. Batman stops them and connects to the main server. But when we least expect it, the militia strikes. But Batman and Oracle fends them off. But this is all just a distraction. At the movie studio, Scarecrow took Robin, using Gordon to get in. And then the Joker says this.
There, try those eyes. Seriously, when are you gonna learn? Every time you let someone come between us, they end up dead or crippled or brainwashed into killing you. Take a hint, old boy. We may have had our differences, but you and me, we're made for each other.
I know you guys are going to hate this, but I must yet again point out Batman's main character flaw is feeding into each other. The first thing Batman thinks when Robin is taken isn't that he put him there, is that this was always going to happen because he's Batman. What he rightly gets called out for by Barbara. Batman is mentally self-fulfilling. Batman in this game is to the point where his compassion and anger has consumed him. Bruce sees himself as coming to an end. At this point in the story, he has been betrayed twice, I may add, seen the city get completely engulfed in furious, has seen his darkest secrets blown up in his face, and thought that another one of his compadres is dead. Poor Brucey has had a rough night, and I didn't even mention all the stuff that happens in the side quests. Like, the city at this point is in ruins with all the fires, gases, tanks, and whatever all over the city. If this is bad, then Batman's next antagonist would somehow be worse. Batman has seen so many extremes just becoming Batman. Yeah, I think I want to retire or become something greater as well. At this point, without Joker, the city has somehow gotten worse. So when people say, well, Batman should work with others and he shouldn't give... enough. The reason why Batman is closed off is because of the damage that has been done, and the fact that it'll get worse. Batman has been around for so long, he's not even a myth. He's on billboards now. Guys, think about it for a second. I'm not saying that Batman is entirely right. It's a mix of clearly established flaws and a natural progression of the themes and story. I'll save the rest when we get to Batman becoming a myth. Sadly, I will not be talking about that because the side missions need to be completed in order for Nightfall to take place, so I'll wait for another video to do that. So, Batman has to turn himself in. In doing so, we get an introduction to the end. Scarecrow demands Batman to give up and throw away his belt and get in the truck. At this point, Joker gives him a weird fever dream, showing where his parents were killed. Even the door is meant to mislead you into thinking you're going somewhere else, only to show you why Batman is afraid of this moment. Joker tries to remind Batman that this struggle within himself, the death of Bruce's parents, is at the center of this struggle. The deaths are the reason why Bruce became Batman. It also carries pain with him, and that pain also strengthens Joker. Joker uses this pain in a way to convince Bruce to give up. The centerpiece is the double-edged sword. They both add weight to this power struggle. That's one of the main reasons why this scene exists. It's not just only a staple of the character, but an important into understanding the conflict. Batman fights the waves of Joker, getting more and more brutal over time. Until Batman finally snaps his neck. Joker shows that this is a victory over them. Okay, let's talk about Batman's no-kill rule, at least in the context of this game. Outside the game, there are a few different reasons why Batman doesn't kill, but let's focus on the main two, one of which is given in the Under the Red Hood movie. I thought that its explanation was quite bad, but if you haven't heard it before, Batman essentially says that the reason why he doesn't do it is because he doesn't want to go down this terrible road, meaning that he would become just as bad as they are. I honestly think this lacks weight. Just because you kill someone doesn't mean you're just as bad as them. But the better reason for some of the comics is the reason that Bruce's father is a doctor. A doctor's job is to save someone no matter the person themselves. Good or bad, they save people, not take away. Batman believes that all human lives are sacred and that all things deserve to live. In Arkham Knight, it isn't clear why he doesn't kill exactly. However, we do know that killing for him is something to be afraid of. Through the game, we see the fear Batman has in taking a life. I think this has to do less with Batman's code and rather with the fear becoming the things he fights. We'll see a bit later on what that fear is, but for now we only got a taste of it back at the airship. But there is more going on here, and I plan to decode it later. Shot by shot, scene by scene, we get a recreation of the first shots of Arkham Asylum. As we head inside, Batman prepares for the worst. Gordon takes off Batman's mask to see Bruce Wayne. Scarecrow isn't doing this because he wants to know, but because he simply wants there to be nowhere left to hide. Batman's whole point as a character is to be the mask. There is a key difference between Iron Man and Batman. Iron Man doesn't really care about his identity and doesn't do a lot of street level crime, but Batman on the other hand needs it to be a symbol for fear and hope. Iron Man isn't really in the same department. That too, and Batman is one of the more unique heroes where without or with the mask he is completely different from each other. So in Batman, his secret identity is more than just a mask. No matter with or without the mask, Batman does his best to help people. But Scarecrow now points out the fact that Batman is just a face as someone else. We see things from Joker's perspective. We see most of Batman's villains capture Joker, but this was all planned by Joker, leading to a massacre. Even when the whole charge is full of the Batmobile, it's called the Killing Joke. One-on-one, Joker shoots all the villains later to show that this whole time he's been in GCPD, as the whole world burns around him. Here we finally get the payoff that we've been waiting for. The question, what if Joker was Batman, comes true in the worst ways. Even showing mercy is an option.
All right, cobblers, because you groveled so nicely. Thank you. I changed my mind.
I chose to shoot him anyway. The beginning is almost to show how Joker's reign will get worse, killing villains only to kill cops. Then on top of this, the city we should be protecting is now in flames. Joker is in control, or so we think. Scarecrow injects more into Joker, but doesn't seem to matter. Then everything gets dark and Batman is in control. We see Joker's statue, his wake, his body, all with one message, that Joker is scared of being forgotten. Bro, even the fact that the Riddler and Harley are having a kid is so foul. Batman preys on his fears and sends him off to be forgotten. We can read these scenes in many different ways. One slight problem. That being, is he talking to Joker or himself when he says that he will be forgotten? As I've shown throughout this video, the Joker's conflict with Batman is less with B-Man versus Joker, but Batman versus Batman. The Joker is just a stand-in. But this whole sequence sort of isn't about that. Sure, maybe Batman has a fear of being forgotten, but that doesn't make any sense. He's a CEO of a massive company and his hero identity is literally all over billboards, so I think this is one of the times where this versus himself isn't a factor. Here everything is about Joker's need for attention, of being forgotten. This handles the idea of Joker quite well. Joker has always been in control in most situations. Funny thing, the other day I heard a discussion between Hugo Strange and Joker in Arkham City. Hugo usually uses an upper hand, but with Joker, he dominates the control, showing that even in moments like these, he's dangerous. This remains true in Knight until the very end. Batman uses something that has been used against him, the fear toxin. In fact, the whole story has been setting up to this. Remember back to the City of Fear arc, Scarecrow said that Batman inspired him to use fear and said that they would use it in the same way. Now, the product of that is true, and will be set up for the end of this game's tale. I think this also plays well into the theme of the game. Fear. What is it? Are you afraid of secrets, losing the ones you love, being forgotten, etc.? This is one of the reasons why Crane is a good villain for this story. The themes are effectively to make the story work from the ground up. Then, to wrap this whole thing in a bow, that fear comes into gameplay. Using mass Really, editing Splinter, I was in the middle of talking, I was in the zone, can you not... Whatever. Seeing the power of the Joker only to have it flipped on him as a result. Going from third-person all-out shooter to a horror first-person experience. The entire thing is executed perfectly to make it all work together. Even the iconic line brings it all home. Batman's eyes turn from green to blue. Batman shows that he isn't afraid as the new Red Hood comes out to help out. Only for Crane to get a taste of his own medicine, and as Batman takes him to GCPD, the main story comes to a close. Okay, if you've made it this far somehow, thank you. I'm thinking of maybe cramming some of the stuff that I wanted to say in the last section, but I guess I'll just do it here. So after all that, what's the conclusion of Arkham Knight's story? Honestly, I truly believe that Arkham Knight's story is one of the best Batman stories ever. This story, while taking inspiration from past Batman works, feels completely unique, always putting Batman in a great spot character-wise. But most people don't think this way, so why is that? It comes down to a few big things: the Arkham Knight, Joker, and how Batman is handled. So first, let's talk about the Arkham Knight. I told you we'd come back to him. The Arkham Knight criticisms, I feel, are mostly done for three reasons. 1, the identity/lies. 2, Red Hood in other forms of media. And 3, what Red Hood means to Batman. So first one up is about AK's identity being lied about. A long time ago, when asked, the developer said that AK's identity was a new character. Obviously that isn't the case, so why are people upset? Honestly, this point has never made sense to me. Writers will lie all the time about either to mislead or to cover up something. As long as it isn't something like nefarious, then by all accounts it's okay. There isn't anything wrong with that. Still, getting upset over something that isn't wrong is weird to me. Storytellers do this all the time, and this is by no means abnormal or wrong. The second one comes about from Red Hood material. Other versions of Red Hood focus on the no-kill rule and have completely different backstories. This doesn't make Jason bad though. Again, there is a reason why Jason chooses the persona... God damn it! Chooses the identity of the Arkham Knight and not Red Hood at first. The backstories and actions are different because while there is a loose base, the differences are clear. As for the third one, we need to understand that AK represents something different. In most other contexts of the Red Hood, it seems like he's mostly to question Batman's no-kill rule, or if he's the protagonist, there's usually some kind of workaround about trauma, death, or something related to those two things. In Arkham Knight, it's from Batman's perspective. The context of the story Jason places is mostly to show Batman's darkest secrets and future flaws he makes. It's because of Jason Batman locks up Tim. Batman is less challenged as he is haunted. It's all these things that make him a great antagonist, but also a great character. Even his change at the end is to show a type of growth from all the pain that he suffered with. Now, about Joker. This one is the weakest I've seen. I get it, people don't like something, that's too good, but guys, it's really, really good. It's used in a way that it only adds to the character, not only as a conflict, but as an antagonist as well. I see nothing wrong with how he's treated. Then, as Batman, lastly, I honestly believe that every action that Batman makes is built up to make sense. There is nothing that caught my eye as a character assassination or anything close to that. We'll have to talk more about this later when I go over some of the planned responses. I think you guys have seen enough already at this point, so I'll wrap things up. I really enjoyed this. Next part coming out like 2030. I won't be uploading for a while, so in the meantime, check out the second channel and my fiction channel. Till next time, and when I come back, I'll have to settle a score.
So, this is what they call a heartwarming family reunion, eh?
You got that right.